Okay, so what happens when you ask four of the smartest AIs on the planet the same massive question and they all get it wrong? Well, according to one human expert, that's exactly what happened. We're about to dive into this incredible debate between artificial intelligence and human wisdom, and trust me, what it reveals about our future is pretty mind blowing. So, the challenge itself sounds simple, but you can't get much bigger than this. It all boils down to one thing. What are the three most critical, most urgent questions we, as a species, need to answer for our future? This one question, you guys, set the stage for a real clash of intelligences. Right, so in one corner, you've got the heavyweights ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, and DeepSeek. These vast digital minds, packed with data and logic. And in the other corner, Dr. Bruce Lloyd, a human expert with a whole lifetime of experience. The whole idea was to see, what happens when you pit them against each other? Where would they agree? And, more importantly, where would they just completely disagree? All right, first up, let's look at the AIs. What did these super powerful models, trained on pretty much all of human knowledge, come up with? Turns out, they had a surprisingly similar take on things. Yeah, it's kind of fascinating, right? Even though they're all built differently with different data, they all zeroed in on the same kind of problem. They looked out at the world and saw these huge external systemic issues, the kind of crises that need everyone to get on board to fix. So their answers really fall into three main buckets, and a great way to think about them is as the hardware problems of our civilization. We're talking about the big, tangible stuff, our planet's physical health, the tech infrastructure we're building, and the global political systems that are supposed to keep everything running. First up, no surprise here, the planet itself. ChatGPT and the others basically shouted from the rooftops that climate change is a massive, defining challenge. It's not just about, can we do something? It's about how on earth do we completely transform our energy, our economies, our whole way of life to actually be sustainable. Next on their list was technology. And of course, being AIs, they get this better than anyone. They see technology as this total double-edged sword. Grok's question really nails it. How do we make sure all these amazing new tools, like AI, like biotech, actually help everyone and don't just make the gap between the rich and poor even wider? And finally, the third big one, how we govern ourselves. Claude's question really gets to the core of it, right? We live in this super connected world. We're dealing with pandemics, cyber attacks, fights over resources, all this stuff that crosses borders. The systems we have for working together are, frankly, stretched to their limits. So the question is, how do we build global institutions that can actually handle these huge shared problems? Okay, so there you have it. The AI verdict is in. We need to fix the big external systems. But then the human expert, Dr. Bruce Lloyd, steps up, and he just completely flips the script. I mean, look at that. Just two words, I disagree. But those two words, they throw a massive wrench into the whole AI consensus. He heard everything they said about climate, tech, and global crises, and basically said, nope, you're all looking at the wrong thing. And this is where things get really interesting. Dr. Lloyd's whole point was that these big hardware problems the AIs were so focused on, they're just symptoms. The real problem, the actual root cause, he said it's not out there. It's in here. It's inside us, in our most basic human skills. This slide just lays it out so perfectly. He said, forget the external hardware for a second. We need to upgrade our internal software. His argument is that we're never going to solve those big problems if we don't first get these three things right. Number one, how do we get better at talking to each other? Actually having quality conversations to find common ground, not just yell at each other. Number two, how do we get better at learning? And number three, and this is a big one, how are we raising the next generation? So, this is the moment of truth, right? The AIs have been presented with this totally different way of looking at everything. The big question is, how are they going to react? Are they going to dig in their heels and say, nope, we were right the first time, or will they actually see the human's point? This slide just sums up the whole debate perfectly. On the left, you've got the AI's perspective, all these giant external hardware problems, climate change, tech governance, global crises. Then, on the right, you've got the human's perspective. It's all about our internal software, better conversations, more effective learning, how we raise our kids. At first glance, these look like they're from two different planets. But are they really? And here's the amazing part. The AIs didn't just get it, they started speaking the same language. Check out this response from Grok. It immediately latched onto that software versus hardware idea.
It's basically saying, I see what you're doing. You're focusing on the human operating system, not just the external applications. It's incredible. And it wasn't just Grok. All of the AIs came around to this idea. They realized that Dr. Lloyd's points weren't some kind of distraction from the real issues. No, they were the missing piece of the puzzle. They finally understood that you can't fix the external hardware if your internal software is buggy.
In fact, the AIs started connecting the dots themselves. Think about it. How are you ever going to solve complex climate negotiations? You need better conversations. How are we supposed to handle the massive disruptions from new tech? Through more effective learning. And who's going to be the long-term guardian of our planet? A generation that's been raised to have that wisdom and sense of responsibility. It all connects. So where does that leave us after this amazing back and forth between human and machine intelligence? It feels like the whole game has changed. The question we started with, what are the world's biggest problems, has morphed into something much deeper, something a lot more personal. This, right here, is really the heart of it. The AIs started by looking out at the world's problems, but the human expert made them, and all of us really, look inward. To stop looking at the storm outside and start looking at the ship we're in and the crew that has to sail it. Are we focusing on the problems, or are we focusing on our ability to solve them? And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. Are we even trying to solve the right problem? Maybe the biggest challenge isn't climate change or AI governance or any of that. Maybe the most critical question we should be asking is this: are we investing enough in ourselves, in our ability to talk to each other, to learn, and to raise a generation that's better than we are, so that we actually have a shot at building the future we all say we want?